Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, gorgeous. I don't know where you are, but no matter what, I'm so happy that you're here. I have such an awesome guest. You already saw her before, and she's coming back this time because she's a fierce practitioner of a really ancestral medicine that I'm really curious about. So, welcome to the Rockstar Wellness Series, Tamzin.
Thank
Doctor.
you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I love being here and chatting with you.
I love your book, by the way. This yellow cover, I have to
Thank
say.
you.
Well done. Very well done. So yes, I really wanted to speak with you because I know you practice Ayurveda for a
hmm
while,
hmm
and from your story, it really helped you to get back your health and your well-being.
Yes.
So I would like to understand, what is so specific about Ayurveda?
Sure. So Ayurveda literally means I use Veda, which means the science of life. And it's the sister science to yoga. So in the East, it's taught along with yoga because it's a system of habits and rituals, and it's really ties you into how you show up in the world. In the East, in the West, we tend to, separate everything. You have a doctor for your heart and a doctor for your eyes and a doctor for your mind, And what I loved about Ayurveda was that it was the first sort of classification system that went beyond just my mind or just my body and looked at the way they wove together. Because if you've got a background like I do in psychology, you've come across all of the psychological profiling tools, right? And all of those online tests that we love, like
Yes.
Enneagram and Gallup Strengths, and then, Myers Briggs, and all, we're all like, oh, I'm a this, oh, I'm a that, or then you do the body type and you're like, oh, I'm an ectomorph, I'm an endomorph, I'm a this, I'm a that, I should be eating this food, and you end up getting completely overwhelmed. And what I loved about Ayurveda was that it was this system that was created about 6,000 years ago by a group of monks who were trying to figure out how to meditate more, because if they could meditate more, then they could sorry, that's my new puppy who's like squealing at the door, so I hope you guys
A picture. Oh,
yeah,
yes,
she's adorable, but she's outside and she's looking at me like, why won't you let me in? But yeah, so it's designed by these monks who are trying to figure out how to be as healthy as they possibly could. And what we're really looking at here is the two angles, and we can go into this, but there's the general angle of Ayurveda, which is what season are we in, what time of day is it, how old are you, which we all experience. And then we have our unique doshic profile, which when you are formed, right, when the sperm and the egg unite, right, and you are created, your unique Ayurvedic profile comes into being. And then part of, mastering Ayurveda is mastering the interplay between the general, right, what time of year is it, what time of day is it, and your
okay.
own unique profile.
I really love that because it reminds me something I learned recently between the lunar cycle and our menstrual cycle.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's the same, there is such a combination with both of them. And when
Mm-hmm.
you understand the way they work, they help you to get to know more about yourself. So, for
Yeah.
example, Ayurveda, from what you're telling me, we have each of us, we have a specific dosha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We most of us have like a 1-2. So we have like, so if it's a score out of 10, you might be like a 5-4-1, right? So most people have like a 1-2 dominant.
Because I know that there's ton of tests out there to know exactly what is your dosha. Me, I did it recently, and they
Mm-hmm.
said that you have a good harmony between the three, between the pitta, kapha.
Vata and kapha, right?
Voilà.
So there
Yeah.
are the three doshas which combine the five elements, right? So a really good way to kind of, as a sort of really good intro to Ayurveda, is take your hand and blow on it, right? What do you feel? So do that now. What do you feel?
Warmth.
So you feel warmth. Okay. What else do you feel?
It's okay. It's okay. It's all right.
Did you feel movement?
Oh yeah, movement. Yeah, with the
And did
breath.
you feel moisture?
A little bit.
Right? So those are the three doshas, right? The moisture is kapha, which is the
Okay.
earth, water. The movement is vata, which is air and space. And the heat, the warmth, is pitta, which is the fire and water.
So just with your breathing, you can.
You can feel the three doshas.
Oh
You can
wow.
feel the heat, you can feel the moisture, you can feel the movement.
I was feeling more the movement and the warmth, but sure, yeah, it's true. Interesting. But it's no, because I heard so many people they start to adopt this practice, and you when you see it this way, it may look like quite overwhelming.
Hmm.
Honestly, it's a lot, and you say, okay,
Yeah,
where do I start?
right.
So, if, for example, you when you started, where did you start?
So I started because I felt dysregulated, right? I wasn't sleeping well, and I was having all these food allergies. And I went to all of the classic Western doctors who, did a test for helio, helio, whatever it's called, that bacteria that we all have that can cause inflammation. They did tests for gluten and celiac disease. They
Everything.
did all these tests because they were like, let's do all the tests and rule things out, and all of them came back negative, 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 negative. And they were like, I don't know, like, here, take a sleeping pill. Maybe that'll help you sleep. And maybe like just try cutting out wheat or go vegan or go paleo, and and I felt like it was symptom suppression rather than understanding the root cause, right?
Good. Oh,
And
yeah.
so I started reading up about Ayurveda because I was looking for a solution that wasn't, I'm not anti-drugs, but as a starting point, I feel like that's the wrong start, right? I'm like, I wanted to look at the context of my life, and that was what led me to Ayurveda. Is I read a book and I realized that I needed to create some routines and that I had been in a completely reactive state, right? I was
Oh,
starting my day when my kids woke me up, not at the same time every day, because I was waking up to meditate and look after myself first, right? I was eating like in between, running around like clients and kids and dog and husband and so I wasn't eating at the same time every day. I wasn't going to sleep at the same. So I exercise, all of these things that ground us and
mhm.
nurture us as humans, all of the rituals and routines, I wasn't doing. I was in a completely just react to their needs. And so when realized that I hadn't done that, and Ayurveda says, start with this, like, get your systems in a routine and then see if you have symptoms. And if you still have symptoms, then let's do the next thing. But start by getting into a baseline of exercising every day, meditating every day, eating at the same time every day, sleeping at the same time every day. And I was like, it sort of on some level, it was like, could it be that simple? Right? Right? You know? Because this is like desire to sort of like massively overcomplicate. And it's like, really? Like, could I feel better if I just go to sleep at the same time every day and get up at the same time every day? And I get up on my terms and do some self-care first, So I started doing all of that and my symptoms all went away. And I was like, oh, there's something here, And then I started having more conversations with people. And you can see there's my pregnant belly I have 3 kids. That's my 39 weeks with my second. And I loved being pregnant. Like, I just felt amazing. And one of my friends found it like the most stressful thing because she just felt heavy and exhausted and sick and lethargic. And once I started studying Ayurveda, I understood why. So I'm Vata. I'm Vata Pitta. So I'm movement, 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 and then intensity, right? Movement, move, 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 squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. So for me, pregnancy is kapha. You're growing another human. So you're grounding. So for me, I was like finally in my body and I wasn't like floating away in a million different directions. People who are very kapha, who already have that natural, calm, grounded energy, pregnancy can be too grounding and they just feel sick and heavy and exhausted, right?
Hey.
Because it's a system of opposites, right? You start to recognize like it's really hot outside, I shouldn't go for a run in the midday sun, right? Like that's going to make me feel worse. I should exercise at sunset or at dawn, right? And you start to look at and you're like, oh,
No, really interesting because when I got pregnant, I love it. I really
mm-hmm,
love it. When
mm-hmm.
when you're in the cloud,
Just like yeah, like
yeah,
everything feels good.
exactly, I was good. I was really, really good. It was just to the hand when I started to be a bit more tired. But yes, my parents, I was really great.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I speak with other women, they say, no, I don't understand. But it's quite interesting what you're saying.
Right. And that's really what a lot of it is about. And I think one of the things when you start getting interested in Ayurveda is just oh, Cora, shh. This is my pup. She's like, meow, meow, meow. It's just learning about what the seasons are. That's one of the biggest things I'll say to people, particularly if you live somewhere where the seasons really shift. And then really also pay attention to the time of day, right? So start with looking at the general, right? What time of day is it? When should I be sleeping? When should I be eating? What kind of food should I be eating in these different systems at different times of day?
It's interesting because recently I started to track what I'm eating, what I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing, what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
self-care and routine.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helped me to see the different patterns
Mm,
terms of emotions, mindset,
mm-hmm.
I was going. And so
Absolutely.
when you mix that, you combine this with the seasons, the
Mm-hmm.
star and everything, you really start to have a holistic approach.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and it is, and one of the biggest things I'll say to people when they start using this as a framework is, you can get really granular, like you can with anything, and really like into the weeds of all the different, like, should I be eating this food, and if you get everybody in your family to do the dosha tests, and you're like, oh, this person in my family's kapha, this one's vata, this one's pitta, and then you can just be like, ah. Right, it's too much. So, what I say to you always is start with the general, right? So, pitta, the fire, that's in between 10 and 2 a.m. and p.m. So, eat your biggest meal between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Regardless of the season, regardless of the time of year, anything, regardless of whether you're pitta, vata, or kapha, eat your biggest meal in the middle of the day, your smallest meal at the end of the day, right? Like that's something that everybody can do and you'll feel better, right? Like that's just so there's things like that, like start with the general and then start to notice, because that's the other thing that's so cool about Ayurveda is that it's not a one size fits all, right? So you start with these general principles and then you start to notice, right? So if you've got a lot of vata in your system, a lot of the movement and air, you have to watch food that is very airy because your system is like, oh, I love popcorn and apples and salads and all the light things because that feels familiar, right? But air on air creates more expansion and less grounding, right? So if you're feeling like that, eat heavy food that's going to pull you down. Yeah. Cool, right?
Yes, that's what I'm listening to you. I'm completely fascinated. Gorgeous, I'm here. I'm not forgetting you. That's all. It's just, wow.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, okay, I need to definitely EV meals. Yeah, lunchtime. I completely agree with that because I'm not comfortable to have EV meals on the evening most of
Yeah.
the time. Yeah. To
Yeah.
sleep and okay, start by this. What is the second step we can do to dive into Ayurveda?
So, one of the first things I would suggest you do is what would I suggest you do? I would suggest that you really start by looking at tracking your days and your time, right? And start creating a routine. And that's something that a lot of us adults, a lot of us entrepreneurs
Mhm.
totally resist, because the reason that we like to work for ourselves, the reason that we're not a kid anymore is like, don't tell me when to go to bed,
Yeah.
don't tell me when to eat, don't tell me how to plan stuff, because there's that whole like kind of like, hey, I'm going to be in the creative flow and I might want to eat this on Monday and I might want to eat this on Wednesday and I might want to watch this movie on this day and do this, right? And so there's this sort of right, like, don't make me follow a routine, right? So that's the first thing I say to people is like, see if you can go to bed and get up at the same time every day and eat the majority of your meals within the same time frame, right? You're going to feel better. And then to the busy working moms, and I mean that like whether you work in the home or out the home, because I've done both and I know they're both exhausting and overwhelming, is get up before your kids. Get up before your kids, and even if it's just 15 minutes, and do something that's for you, that's got that. And it's not you get up and you pay the bills or you go grocery shopping or you do something you do something for you, right? That is nourishing to you, and that will help ground you in that space so that when you go into the reactive mode of seeing clients, of being a parent, being a partner, being a wife, being a mother, being all the things that, all the roles that we take on, right? You're coming from a place of being integrated, right? And that for me is one of the biggest things about Ayurveda, is that healthy in the West is defined as being absent of disease, right? I don't have a disease. Healthy in Ayurveda is, are you seated in the self?
Are you grounded?
Are you right? Is your mind, your body, your intuition, is everything in alignment? Which is a completely different way of thinking about being healthy. Because somebody can have no, symptoms like physical symptoms, right? And no like DSM symptoms for anxiety or depression or whatever like that, right? But they can still feel crappy, right? Because they're in a relationship that doesn't work for them. They're eating food that makes them feel bloated, but they don't have IBS completely, or they're doing work that doesn't fulfill them. They don't feel like they're in like deeply in their soul and spirit. And you know what I mean? So that's for
Oh yeah.
me is a big thing, right? It's how do you really get deeply integrated? You can, I know.
Yeah. Well, you can tell her we're going to stop soon. But now I really love what you said because it's again a reminder that if you don't fill your cup first, you cannot help the people. You cannot be there for the rest of your family and your loved ones. You have first to fill your cup to feel good, grounded before to go in the world and to do what you want to do. And this is a very good reminder, especially now, because so many women are working from home. Um, we have to manage everything. But
Yeah.
sometimes the children are at school, which is great. But
Yeah.
before it wasn't the case.
Yeah. Right. No, totally. And so they're working all of the roles all on top of each other.
Exactly.
Right.
Completely like that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I know at first it wasn't easy, huh? Even for me.
No, it's exhausting.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's really, really tough. And so and so that's one of the things as well to notice about your Ayurvedic profile is if you then do your own doshic test and you find out what your unique profile is, you can then start to notice that, right? So if you are somebody that has, say, a lot of pitta, which is the fire, you
Mhm.
might find yourself in this situation getting really angry, right? You might also find, that you're like craving coffee and alcohol and spicy foods because those are all familiar to the pitta fire. They're fiery,
Mhm.
right? But
Mhm.
then if you've got pitta in your system, and particularly if the weather is warm outside and you're feeling angry and you're adding pitta on pitta, you're adding the fire on the fire, and then you might start getting ulcers and hives and like rashes and right. So it
Mhm.
all piles up. So when you start learning about your own profile, you can go, oh wow, like okay, so I'm noticing I'm getting terrible insomnia, right? So people with vata tend to like go towards the anxiety and the insomnia and the frenetic energy, right? The pitta will go towards anger and frustration and like red, right? You think of like fire, right? And then kapha types will go into depression and withdrawal and eating too much and sleeping too much and not seeing their friends, right? So each of those doshas will start to play out, right? And the season and the time of the day and all of those other things, illness, stress, all of those weave into it too. So it's not quite that simplistic, but as a general overview, when you start understanding that, you see, oh wow, I'm lying on the sofa, I'm eating too much. Okay, so what's the opposite of that? I need to move, right? I need to exercise. I need to go out and talk to people. I need to get on the phone, right? I need to drink a cup of coffee, right? If you are somebody who is getting all scattered, what do I need? Weighted blanket, warm bath,
Yeah.
massage, a bowl of lovely soup, some nice oily avocado, right? So you
Yeah.
start to see, you're like, oh, I just need to do a little bit of the opposite, even though the thing that is part of me is so familiar to me and I want it. The thing that's going to make me feel better is the opposite.
No, isn't I love what you're saying because when you started to speak about it, I started to have some reminders or memories that yeah, for example, I love to have a nice blanket wrapped around me.
Mm-hmm.
I love
Mm-hmm.
to have a nice cup of hot tea, in the morning. But at the same time, I love to have some fresh water and grapefruit with sugar, and it wakes me
Mm-hmm.
up, and I'm full of energy. So I can really see basically how it's important to match both of the dosha,
Mm-hmm.
because I know
Yeah.
I'm like fire, but I need to have something to cool down, to ground it. So this
Yeah.
now is really fascinating because I know that I loved everything warm, hot shower,
Mm-hmm.
hot cup of tea. But at the same time, I love everything that is fresh in terms of water, fruits, apple, salad, and everything, and moving my body. When I don't move my
Mm-hmm.
body, I start to eat
Mm-hmm.
more, I start to sleep more, I start to be a bit sluggish, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't like it.
Right.
Just shake
Right. And the movement is really important because that back to that concept of what it means to be healthy. In the Ayurvedic model, we have this system of what's called the koshas, which are it's kind of like like the Russian stacking dolls with the way
Okay,
they stack
yes,
inside each other. So you think of yourself as you've got like your inner core, which is your soul or your spirit, right? And you've
yes,
got these different shells, right? And one is like your intuitive body, like that deep knowing, right? That us women have to often relearn how to access
yeah,
because it's shut down often once when we get into school and teenage years. Then you've got the mental body, right?
yeah,
Then the manamaya kosha, which is the mind and that whole mental part of your life. Then you've got the annamaya kosha, which is the physical body, right? Like this is the tangible physical body. And then you have the pranamaya kosha, which if you've practiced yoga, you may have heard of the word prana, right? Which is
yeah,
energy or breath. And that extends out a couple of feet from your body. And you know that when you walk into a room and you can feel somebody's anger or
yeah.
sadness or fear, even though you're not like talking to them, you can feel that energy pulsing from them. And when you exercise regularly and you meditate and you work and you eat food that works, those koshas are in alignment. And when they're in alignment, everything flows, right? And that's what we're looking at often in Ayurveda is there'll be a blockage, right?
Oh, fascinating, fascinating. More you're speaking about it, the more I really need to dive into practice, right now. But no, I really love what you're saying because it's really a key now to be in alignment, with your body, mind,
Right,
spirit. Because it's not like I think the outside world is going to confirm to you that everything is safe. It's done.
right.
It's done.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything is bubbling down. So the key is really for yourself, inside out, to feel grounded.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's such an inner work. So that's why Ayurveda for me, it's amazing by doing
Mm.
this, by helping you to realign yourself. Wow.
Absolutely. And that's really it's about being in integrity, right? And that's the biggest part of it is really, learning to do that. And then the more you get into it, the more you notice when things get out of alignment. And in Ayurveda, we usually do cleanses twice a year to clean the system out so that you
Okay.
can kind of reboot and come back. And there's also when you feel really out, you can just do a couple of day cleanse on your own. But again, it's that thing of like how you can clean the channels out, right? Which is a big part of this process.
I love it. I love it. Do you have any resources for us regarding Ayurveda that we can go to?
Sure. So my book, Force of Habit,
Ah,
Unleash Your Power by Developing Great Habits, you can get on Amazon in Europe as well. Amazon Co
okay.
UK, I know. And then also I love the Chopra Center website is great.
Okay.
The Joyful Belly. There are a whole load of yoga and Ayurveda sites. And if you're going to buy supplements, Banyan Botanicals is a great one for like all of the lovely oils for massage and the
Okay.
spices, the herbs.
Thank you very much. Okay. I will know. I need to do. I need to wear. I need to try it. But it's just the yellow cover. Like this for me, is so sunny, shiny, bright, and this is what we need. Let's be honest. We need
Right?
more light.
Ah,
Yes, when you so it's
ah,
really good.
exactly.
Yeah. So, do you want to say anything else for us in terms of Ayurveda, even regarding your coaching programs or anything that you're working on right now?
Sure. Yeah, so in January I'm going to be launching another detox program where we're going to be looking at cleansing everything out because 2020 has been a year.
This is an
And so
understatement.
yeah, and we need to clean things out. And so when I do that, I look at it not just, what you're eating, but that's a very important part of that basis, but also, your physical space is really important. What's going on between the ears, and also, the other bit that is interesting, to go into a little bit, is relationships, because we
Ah,
get into those habits in our relationships of, having that fight again and again, and you're
I
like,
know that.
oh
Yeah,
really, we're doing that again?
yeah.
Or, having conversations with important people in your life, whether they're your business partners or your personal partners or your children or your friends, family members, where it's what's often called that sort of transactional conversation, like, I'll pick you up at then, should we go for dinner here, should we get Chinese takeout, have you paid the taxes, rather than, what do you want your life to look like in 5 years time, and how can I help you?
How can I help
Right,
you?
right,
Mm.
we often spend a lot of time on that, on the, like, the doing, and
Mm.
the like the function of a relationship,
You know, it's
like,
true.
when are you coming, and I think that this process of cleansing it all out and detoxing, it can be really helpful to look at a relationship and go, we've got this kind of relationship which gets stuck here, so it's not really
Yeah,
about therapy, it's about recognizing the patterns and changing them, right?
yeah. No, it sounds really interesting, yeah, especially about pattern in relationships, because when it starts to repeat again, again, and again, is it's exhausting. It's
Right,
exhausting, and you just wonder what is happening. So I think learning to people have to heal their relationship with others.
right.
Right. Right now, it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, particularly here in the US, we're very, very divided. And I think part of it as well is this issue of that we get into habits, right? We get into these habits in a relationship of having a kind of, whether it's the sort of the drama triangle of, like, the victim and the rescuer, or
Mm.
the victim and the bully, we get into these patterns. And, with respect to habits, one of the things that can often cause change and difficulty in relationships is that if you decide to make a change in your life, right? Whether it's a change, you're going to go vegan, you're going to start doing CrossFit, you're going to start sleeping a lot earlier, you're going to quit alcohol, right? So if you make a decision to change a habit like that, it can often cause difficulties in a relationship because your habits are the external expression of how you show up in the world. And so when people can't define you by, oh, you're somebody who drinks every night, you're somebody who eats meat, you're somebody who works for a corporation rather than works for yourself, right? All of these sorts of habits of the way we show up in our daily life, when that changes, that can be really confusing and threatening for
Yeah,
some people too.
yeah, yeah. It's quite interesting because when you start to change this way, people react in a way either they're going to support you
Right.
or they're going to try to put you back where exactly. And this is why you see the level of awareness, and you say, okay, it's time to make a little bit of cleaning in my relationship.
Exactly. And so it's that thing of, like, are they an enabler or a supporter, right?
Exactly.
And and if they're the ones who are going, have the candy, have the candy, have the candy, when you've said you've decided to quit sugar, right? It's kind of like, why? I'm not judging you for eating the candy, and so navigating that. Yeah.
It's really, really interesting because especially when you start to grow from a personal development point of view, it's so obvious the person helping you or not. And it's true, is also, I think, an inner work to recognize, identify, and make a choice regarding your
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
So, okay, now, you know what? Send me all these details about it. Like this, I will put it in the comments. Like this, if anyone is interested, gorgeous, if you're interested about it, I really recommend you basically to give a try because I believe 2021 is going to be another year, and healing your relationship from inside out is necessary. So thank you so much, Tamzin. Dr. Tamzin Astor to be with us today. It was a pleasure. I love having you here.
Thank you. It's lovely to chat with you.
And yeah, send my love to your dog because she's
Oh, I
beautiful.
will. Thank you.
And yes, I'm sending you so much love. Gorgeous. See you next week for another episode. Ciao.